Hey, look what we have found. A big sound in a small town. Far away from the bright lights. They're making music every night. Discover what is all around. A big sound. A big sound. In a small town. Big sound, small town. A really big sound. Big sound, small town.
You're listening to Big Sound, Small Town with Sandy Carlton.
Hi, and welcome to Big Sound, Small Town. I'm your host, Sandy Carlton, and this is a podcast about the lives and stories of the musicians, writers, artists, and their associates that have their roots in the small towns and communities across America. If you like what you hear, tell somebody. Enjoy.
All right. Introduce myself. I'm Greg McGraw.
All right.
I'm the founder and owner of Max Music, which is 25 years old this year, actually. And we have been producing concerts in Charlotte and surrounding areas for 25 years. As far as I know, I don't know that I can back this claim up, but I think Max Music is the largest independent concert promotion company, at least in this part of North Carolina.
Well,
Maybe the state, but
would it be fair to say, I want to say this, that you took Charlotte out of the dark ages musically?
I appreciate that. I don't know if it's fair to say. There were a lot of people working in the music scene in Charlotte for a lot of years.
And doing nothing.
I don't know about that. I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. And as I told you earlier, I'm the least talented musician to have ever come out of Cleveland County, so I found my place in the music industry.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would probably give you my musical ability to change places just for the experiences.
I'll trade. You know, yeah.
I mean, you can write, and I'm sure you may. I mean, you have enough stories to write a book, I'm sure.
I probably could. I don't know if anybody'd be interested in reading it, but it's been a fun life. I mean, it's been, not that it's over, but it's
I'm hoping.
Been a fun 25 years. And yes, I have a collection of stories. And I've had a great time doing what I do. Do you remember I'm sure you do, but do you remember the first show that you put on? So I started as part of the Charlotte Americana Showcase, or the Tuesday Night Americana Showcase at the Double Door.
Sure.
And that was a collection of Charlotte Americana musicians. So Doubting Thomas, Rank Outsiders, make sure I don't leave anyone out, Lou Ford, Michael Reno Harrell, David Childers, and Lenny Federal.
Mm-hmm.
It was a group of musicians who got together, and the main reason was to see if we could record a compilation CD, to raise enough money to record a compilation CD of what was going on in the Charlotte music scene. And we were very successful with that. We did Tuesday nights. I think we started out charging $2 or $3, and that was the admission price, and all of that money went towards recording the CD.
I might even still have a flyer from that time, or the Double Door schedule somewhere among my stuff.
I still have them too, somewhere.
Yeah.
But as I said, I was lucky. You know, I knew a lot of these musicians, and clearly I was not going to get in any of those bands. But I had enough business sense that they kind of brought me in and let me help organize this and run it.
And the compilation did happen, right? The record did happen.
Oh, it did happen. Known on the Underground.
Right.
It's still a great CD. It holds up today.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to get that out there. You can find it. You can still find it.
You can. I may still have copies around
the
house. I don't know.
Yeah.
But And I was lucky. Nick Karras from the Double
Sure.
Door sort of took me under his wing, and I kind of go back and forth. Sometimes I credit him, and sometimes I blame him.
Yeah, I can
for,
understand that. Yeah.
For what's happened the last 25 years. But no, he was great. He let us have Tuesday nights, so that went on for 5 years. That was as the Americana Showcase.
Right.
But somewhere in there, I got the bright idea that I was tired of driving to Asheville,
Sure.
Chapel Hill,
Yeah.
to see bands that I wanted to see. So, I mean, you asked me earlier, I stumbled into being a promoter. I literally, and this could never happen today, I picked up the phone, I called, I think they were Monterey at the time in Nashville. I think I'd just gotten back from probably Asheville, seeing Robert Earl Keen.
Yeah.
He didn't come to Charlotte. He
Right.
never made it to Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte, and we can talk about that, but Charlotte was sort of a flyover city for a lot of bands.
It was really for a long time.
It was, and I know the reasons. We never had, I mean, we had radio, but we had top 40 radio.
True.
Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent.
No, that's part of it. No.
But anyway, so I picked up the phone, I called Monterey, and I said, I want to speak to Robert Earl Keen's agent, and they actually put me through.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it could never happen today, really.
It actually happens a little bit for me with podcasts because they're so new. I call an agent up and they'll, oh yeah, but then a lot of times they want to do it remotely.
Yeah.
Which is not as much fun.
Yeah, but so I managed to get through, and I get on the phone. It was Bobby Cudd, who is from Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina.
That helps.
Still a friend of mine. He's still an agent. I talk to him all the time. But I managed to get through, and I said exactly what I just told you. I'm tired of driving to Asheville
Right.
or Chapel Hill to see
Sure.
shows. Why doesn't Robert Earl Keen come to Charlotte? And he said, there's nobody there to do the show. And my response
Well,
was,
at that point there wasn't.
there wasn't. And I said, okay, I'll do it. and then I said, so tell me what I have to do. And he did. He said, you need to find a venue. You need to guarantee us a certain amount of money,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I did it. And the first show that was not the Americana Showcase
Right.
that I did was at, what was the place called? It was John Ellison, who owns Amos's now in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And it was near the university. And I can't, it's not coming to me. But the first show I did was Robert Earl Keen.
Did you go out to him and say, hey, can I rent your building?
Yeah.
I mean,
I did. I called him up and said, I had a little bit of experience
Right.
organizing from the
the other, yeah.
but nothing where I literally had to put money on the line.
Right.
I had to sell tickets, and the way I sold tickets was I literally printed them on a printer, cut them up with scissors, put them out at record stores in Charlotte.
Oh yeah, back when we had record stores.
Back
Yeah.
when we had record stores, and
Yeah.
I mean that's how that was the first show. Kim
Did-
Ritchie was the second.
That Kim Ritchie show was a bomb too. Before I forget it, that was absolutely. I know. Was that the same place you had Robert Earl Keen?
Yeah.
I saw Kim Ritchie there. That was one fantastic show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I didn't realize that. But
Yeah.
that was kind of out in the boonies too. I mean,
It was out near the university.
I can't remember either.
Think of the name of that place.
Did you make money on your first one? Did you make money on Robert King?
I did. I made money, and I wasn't sure. I mean, even until the end, when I was settling up, and I kind of counted everything at the end, I went,
Oh,
I actually made
I
money.
made money. Oh, I can do this again.
Yeah, and yeah, unfortunately, you don't make money every
This
time.
is
It's like the stock market.
it is.
You have to have enough shows that the ones that make money take care of the ones that don't.
After all this time, can you predict who will and who won't?
Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
yeah, that's kind of podcast listens. I can't predict those either.
Yeah. I mean, if any of us could do that,
Oh yeah,
I'd,
and I'm sure there's a ton of issues that goes with that. Who is in town? what is in town, you know.
Yep.
And but I guess you look towards that too when you're looking to book these, right?
You do, but then there are things that happen. I mean, I remember having 5 or 10 shows booked right after 9/11.
Yeah.
Those did not do well.
I'm sure they didn't. Yeah.
Not that many years ago, I had one of what I thought was one of the coolest shows that I'd done in a while, which was Dave Alvin and
Yeah.
Jimmy Dale Gilmore when
Sure.
they were out touring.
Yeah.
Neighborhood theater. I thought the show was great, by the way, but I thought this is, you know,
Show was great.
this is cool. Bob Dylan came to town the same night.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I guess even something like weather can
It's certainly.
cut the margin.
We're in the South, so if somebody says it might snow tonight, then,
It's true.
then it kills walk up.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Now, I guess these days, pre-sale is 99% of it, or how much is walk up?
It depends on the venue. It depends on the artist, and it also depends if we're talking pre-COVID or post-COVID.
Well, okay.
So pre-COVID, let's take the neighborhood theater.
Okay.
So Max Music operates neighborhood theater. We put most of the music in. We do rent the room out, but we put most of the music in. Neighborhood theater, if it's okay. Last weekend we had Yonder Mountain String Band.
Right.
A show like that, sort of a bluegrassy jam
Right.
show, will very often do double at the door, or double day a show. It'll do mainly
Really?
walk up or 50% walk up. Pre-COVID,
Is that the nature of the music?
I think it's a little bit the nature of the Charlotte audiences. They
Oh,
tend to
okay.
be last-minute buyers. I mean, I talk to other club owners,
Right.
and we all see the same thing.
Yeah.
And it depends. If you're doing a show, and we do shows in the Performing Arts Center
Right.
in Charlotte, that tends to be more
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
advanced.
Yeah,
You
I
do
think that would
very
be.
little walk.
I guess venue is that way. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
the venue kind of dictates that a bit. Huh. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but post-COVID, and it's starting to change, but post-COVID, we don't do very much walk-up right now. People make decisions about whether they're going to come out or not in
Yeah.
advance, and there are a lot more factors.
Talk about that while we're here. The changes you had to make. I mean, once you open back up.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part of COVID was, and I still remember, March 7th was the last show we had, March 7th, 2020. Shut down. We had the Motet at Neighborhood Theater,
Right.
great show, wasn't sold out, but we had a really wonderful audience that night. Had Stephen Marley scheduled for the next week. We still haven't played that show. I think
Really?
it plays in February or March now. We went from looking like we were going to have the best year we'd ever
Right.
had with what the schedule was how it lined up, to shutting down. And I've talked a lot about this because I mentioned before, I've been very active with NEVA, which was
Right.
the independent venue organization. But we were the business, live music, venues,
Sure.
musicians as well,
Yeah.
were the business most affected.
It
because we
was.
went, restaurants could at least do takeout food. We couldn't
True.
do takeout music.
No.
We went from having a great year to zero revenue.
Sure. I went from having shows lined up almost a year in advance to nothing.
Yep.
So it was kind of a shock because it lasted longer than I thought it would. And I would tell you, it's still not back.
Oh, it's not back.
You know?
It's not over. I mean, I can tell you from audience behavior, it's not over. And yes, it lasted longer than any of us thought it would.
Did during that time, I guess this is part of it too, did you live stream? Did you get into that a bit?
I did live streaming.
Was that
probably about 3 or 4 months into it, when I realized after I
It wasn't
scheduled
coming back.
shows
Right.
twice already, and there's some shows that I've rescheduled up to 5 times.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, I realized that this was going to last a lot longer. I wanted to keep people employed. I wanted to see if there was something I could do to generate some revenue. I tried live streaming.
Yeah, we did a lot of
I kept people employed.
Yeah,
Let me just say that.
Well, and that's about what you could do, I think, with live streaming is I mean, the money was. I always kept thinking as a band, that it would be something was better than nothing, but sometimes it was almost nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it was.
So.
But we did that this past spring and early summer when it was still clear that things weren't coming back.
Right.
We did some outdoor shows.
Yeah. Let's go into that. Yeah.
Which were very interesting and a learning experience. I mean, for 24 of 25 years, everything or almost everything I'd done had been indoors at a fixed venue with infrastructure. Turns out that's a lot easier than
oh, I'm sure it is. Plus I don't
fielding a concert.
Sure. And I'm sure that the whole preparation is different. I mean, you have to prepare where before you didn't. I mean, your venue's there.
Right.
So now you got an outdoor thing. You have to come up with seating arrangements.
Yeah. And I mean, the other part of that too was there was nothing we could do, and I don't want to get political, but there was nothing we could do during that period of time that made everyone happy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, either we tried to put in place not restrictions, but we tried to put in place guidelines, safety guidelines.
Sure.
Try to isolate people. Well, that made some people unhappy.
Sure.
But if we didn't do it, then there are other people that are unhappy.
Right.
So I felt like I was in a no-win position, and I was.
Yeah, you kind of were. Yeah.
And no matter what you did, you alienated a portion of every band's audience.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But again, I managed.
And probably still dealing with that somewhat.
We are still dealing with that.
I mean,
the other thing, just if I can backtrack for 1 second, that we did do, and I have to give credit to my staff at Neighborhood Theater, and especially Justin Fedor, who used to be part of New Familiars. He's in several bands, great musician.
Yeah, I know who he is.
But he has been working with Max Music for a while, and we started something called Queen City Streams, and the focus of that again was to keep my people employed,
right?
But also to use our venue and the assets that we had to really focus on local Charlotte musicians.
Sure. I mean, that's wonderful too. That's something that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and it was.
I mean, it's a thing that gets lost once you get things going big sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
And we've always tried. I mean, it's been part of the Max Music vision that anytime we can, I mean, most of the shows that we do are national tours.
Right, they are.
But anytime we can use someone local as support
Sure.
or get them on the bill, we try to do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good business. It's good community business, as opposed to, and I'm sure that, that's just good business.
Yeah, well, and we want to give back. I mean,
sure, that's what it is.
These are, a lot of musicians in Charlotte work in music, but not just Charlotte, probably anywhere, work in music venues.
They do.
We're all a community. We're all a own ecosystem, and we need to support one another.
Well, that's one of the things that I've tried to convey with this is music is a lot more than the guy you see standing on stage or the girl you see standing on stage. It takes a community. It takes a lot of people. It takes listeners. It takes promoters. It takes, and people do not really realize the breakdown of how it is with bands, with having agents, not only a booking agent, but a publicist, they have
a manager,
a road manager,
Yep.
I mean, So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a
that's-
bigger.
It's interesting because that's one of the things as we've reopened neighborhood theater. And sorry, I got off on a tangent
No,
again.
it's-
You asked me a question
and-
that yet to answer, but that's okay. I'll circle back.
Okay, all
But-
right, all right.
But as we reopened neighborhood theater, we really talked about our culture post COVID.
Yeah.
And really, so what you said, all these things that go on behind the scene, there's a little bit of the Wizard of Oz to this,
Kinda,
right?
yeah.
You really don't want everyone, so everybody who comes in, and what we realize is that, you know, we're there every night.
Right.
We're the fortunate ones. We get to hear music
Yeah.
5
yeah.
nights a week.
Sure.
Right? It's our job.
Yeah.
But there are people who come in and maybe they go out to one concert a year.
True.
You know, our good fans come out to 10,
Oh yeah, I'm
20 a
sure.
year,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when they come in, that's a special night for them.
Right.
So they really don't need to know all this. They don't need to know if we're arguing about something
No.
before we open the doors.
True.
When the doors open, it needs to be like the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Everybody who comes in, and I preach this to the people who work at neighborhood theater. It doesn't matter if you don't like the music tonight. You
Right.
like it tomorrow night.
Exactly.
It's not about you. It's about the people who come in.
Sure.
And listen to the music.
Yeah.
And we need to make this the most special night they're going to have that week.
Well, I've always felt that was the atmosphere that was there. You know, it's always been a welcoming place, a place that you know you can go and you're going to get what you expect to get there. You know, I mean,
I appreciate that.
you know, it's consistent because of the 25 years I've been to so many of the things that you've put on, but there's a consistency to it. Is that you'll go in, you'll feel secure, you'll feel comfortable, and the show will deliver like it's supposed to.
I appreciate that.
And I know that
That's
has to
what
be a
we-
ton of work.
Again, it's the man behind the curtain.
Yeah,
Or the people, in my case.
Yeah.
It's not the man, it's the
people behind it.
group
Yeah,
of people behind the curtain.
yeah. But well, that takes a pretty big piece of vision to realize that you need to create that atmosphere. I mean, I've played a lot of places, and sometimes the rooms you go in, you know it's going to be a problem before you even get there. Even if it's going to be a big crowd, you know the night is going to not be uneventful. You know.
Yeah. So from our side, we have that sometimes too. We know leading up to a show, advancing it, this one's going to be
Yeah, and
it's going to be interesting.
And that does have to do, I guess, with people's following and the bands themselves.
Yeah, but I guess to that point, and it's something that I realized again back to one of the questions you asked me before we started. Did I stumble into this? Yes, I did. I mean, I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, and then I woke up some number of years later and went, "Damn, I have a company.
Yeah.
I have people who work for me, who are wonderful, and I'm their employer. This is not just my little hobby.
It's not a hobby anymore.
But it started as a hobby, and I
Right.
think I'm fortunate that it did because as it grew, so I didn't jump in and think I'm going to take over the world. I'm going to be
Bill Graham.
Bill Gates. I didn't think that.
Right.
And so I learned a lot. I still learn every day.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I learned a lot on small shows where the lessons aren't as
Yeah.
tough to swallow.
Right. Yeah. That's,
But then by the time I did wake up and realize I had a company and I had people who worked for me that depended on this company to do well, I knew that it had to be a business. And I think that's the one thing. I have kids all the time.
Sure.
Well, everybody's a kid to me now. But
Yeah.
but I have younger people who
Sure.
come up to me and go, "I want to do what you do. It's got to be the most fun job in the world."
It is.
It is. It really is. I mean,
We won't argue that part.
No, I've lived my best life. I've had
the kids are right. It's
Yeah,
the most
the
fun
kids
job
are
in the
right.
world.
Yeah, if you like music,
Yeah.
it is. If you like music and you're really a bad musician, you couldn't have a better job than mine.
I agree. I mean, it's a fabulous job.
Yeah.
But
it's a job. And you have to treat it like a business.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a hobby, that's okay. But if you get to the point where you're doing 500 shows a year, you damn well better treat it like a business.
Yeah.
And so we do boring things like have meetings every week with my key staff, and we go through every show that's coming up and what do we need to know? What do we need to be prepared for?
Yeah.
Are we having any problems? Do we need to market this a different way?
Right.
So it's a business.
Well,
but that's the guy behind the curtain.
It's also a much branched out. Let's go into that a little bit. I mean, you don't just do Charlotte anymore.
I don't just do Charlotte anymore. We have shows we have for a number of years in Asheville, Wilmington, Raleigh, Greensboro. Done a few in Virginia. And that was for a business reason. I realized that, like any other business that you can think of out there, there are large companies that are coming in and taking over.
Sure, there
for
are.
the most part.
Yeah.
And that's certainly true in the music
No, it's
industry.
really true in the music
and
business.
it's harder and harder for independent venues,
It's really
and
hard,
independent
yes.
promoters to make it. And if you're going to make it and have a staff and grow and be able to support those people and be profitable,
Right.
you really have to look at expanding. And I think the outside of Charlotte started a few years ago because I realized the original plan for Max Music was to be able to work with artists when they entered the market, no matter how small they were,
Right.
until they got to the point where
To where they go to the bigger arenas.
they went to the places where it's past my point
Right.
in the food
Yeah.
chain.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate, I have to say, even with some of those large
Sure.
companies, if I've worked with a band for years and watched them grow in Charlotte and hopefully been able to help
Right.
them grow in Charlotte, with the right agents, the right people, I can still be involved in those shows later. So you will see Max Music doing shows at non-independent venues on occasion.
Larger venues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite story with that is Lake Street Dive.
Yeah.
The very first show that I had with Lake Street Dive was at the Evening Muse. 2 people paid.
Really?
I know who those people were, by the way. I actually remember them. 2 people paid. The next show at the Evening Muse was sold out.
Wow.
The next show in town, their agent, who's a friend of mine, I've known him for years, he was probably the 3rd show that I booked, which I think was Steve Forbert.
Okay.
Calls me up and says, "Greg, I want you to take them to the neighborhood theater." Brad, you're crazy. This is a band that, they just sold out the Muse. It's 120 seats.
Sure.
But the neighborhood theater's 1,000 cap room,
Right.
or 956.
Yeah.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, it is.
There are
It is.
rooms-
I agree.
There are rooms that we can go through to get them to the neighborhood theater. I said, no, I tell you, things are going to happen. Trust me. Things are going to happen. Go to the neighborhood theater. So we did. We took that band to neighborhood theater. Sold neighborhood theater out 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
And so now I think I've done one outdoor show with them, and we've done shows at the Fillmore.
Yeah.
And we just had a show at the amphitheater, the smaller amphitheater with Live Nation in Charlotte.
Right.
That unfortunately the singer was sick that day,
Right.
so we have to postpone it.
Well, yeah. How about Live Nation? How does Max Music fit in with, say, Live Nation?
Again, I keep saying this. I'm really fortunate.
Yeah.
I've lived a good life, I guess, in some way.
I mean, that seems kind of polar opposites in
We
a
are
lot of ways.
polar opposites.
You know?
Yeah, I mean they're
Sure.
corporate.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're corporate.
I mean, I'm just surprised that they even let you speak to them.
No, it's not. I mean, it's not that bad.
Right.
It's They do, and I know all the local guys with Live Nation.
Right.
They're all great guys.
Well, then that helps.
I mean, they
too.
really are. They're and I talk to other people, other promoters, venue
Right.
owners around the country, and I think that's everybody's sentiment. There's Live Nation and AEG.
Yeah.
And then they're all the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much that's what it is these
Yeah,
days.
and all of the rest of us go from really small to bigger. I mean, Max Music does a lot of shows, but there are plenty of independent promoters that are bigger than Max Music. They're out there.
Not in North Carolina, though, I do not believe.
Not based in North Carolina.
No.
I think that's probably.
I mean, you're being modest here. As far as North Carolina goes, you're the man.
I'm from Cleveland County. I was taught to be modest.
Well,
You've met my dad before.
I have, and that is why part of my job is to plug that too. I mean,
But back to Live Nation. We don't always see eye to eye.
right.
But it would do me no good as a company to try to go head to
Well,
head with
no,
Live Nation.
I agree.
And we don't always do the same thing.
Right.
I mentioned before, one of the initial visions with Max Music, I mean, first of all, it all comes from the fact that I love music.
Right.
And for years I made the rookie mistake as a promoter, and I only booked
Bands you
from the
liked.
heart.
Bands you liked.
Bands I liked.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah.
Turns out not everybody likes the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are a lot of other bands out there who deserve
Right.
a chance to play
True.
in Charlotte.
And whether you particularly like their music or not.
Right. Yeah. That's not. Yeah. It's not my job anymore to be. It's not the vision of Max.
It's not
Music
vision anymore.
To only book what I like.
Sure.
I can go home and listen to what I like.
True.
And yeah, and my wife reminds me of this very often, and she's been a great asset because she's there have been a couple of times where with some gospel music, I mean she I don't want to say hounded, that sounds bad, but she asked me several times, why don't you book some gospel music? And finally the opportunity came. I mean, part of it is that I can't just go out and get every show that I want just because I think of it.
Yeah.
But the opportunity came along, and I started putting some gospel music in McGraw Theater in Charlotte, which is unfortunately closed for remodeling for a couple of years now. But it is one of my favorite rooms.
It's a great room, or it was
North
a great
Carolina.
room. Yeah.
And it
is.
will be when it reopens. But I put some gospel shows in there that were amazing.
There you go.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, it's a church, right? It's an old church.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Particularly if you put gospel in there.
Yeah.
As opposed to Guy Clark.
Yeah. That was a great answer.
That's true,
Yeah.
but in a church. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out he doesn't play church. He didn't play church. I won't repeat exactly what he said to me, but he made it clear that he did not want to play a church again.
That's a great story. That's a good one. Where's Max Music headed?
It's a good question. I mean, we're still, again, circling back to questions I didn't answer earlier. We're still coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I mean, I think back to normalcy would be a good short-term vision, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the vision right now. Is we're not being overly aggressive in terms of expansion or even the shows that we book right now in neighborhood theater or the performing arts rooms. I'm trying to be careful because we're not back to normal.
And are you back to full capacity, say, at neighborhood theater?
We are back to full capacity. As it stands right now, and this is what Ricky Nelson said, you can't please everyone, you got to please yourself.
Right.
So the city of Charlotte has a mask mandate,
right,
which we do our best to enforce. We certainly have signage up. There's no capacity restriction. That was the thing that was really
well. I mean, that
was problematic
sure.
for venues, and certainly Charlotte venues or North Carolina venues, because we were the last ones. It's the message we tried to get out from the beginning. we were the first to close,
Right.
and we were the last
To reopen, yeah.
So when we reopened, fortunately, we didn't really have any capacity restrictions, but we still tried to be as careful and cognizant of this pandemic as we could. When the mask mandate was put back and when the Delta variant came,
Right.
so again, I'm jumping around. I apologize, but that's how my brain works.
Yes.
So we reopened in June. I want to say middle of June. And it was mainly with local artists. I mean, one of the other
Right.
problems you have is that nobody was out on the road. None
And-
of the national acts were out.
And could you even make money if you could get them because of the number of people you could put in, maybe?
Yeah, well, we didn't.
Or
we
number
didn't
of people who
necessarily-
would come.
Right.
I mean, that's not
exactly.
that's where I was going with that is how many people were willing to come out.
Right, and that was an unknown. I mean, it was really an unknown. But everybody was being careful. Certainly, the national touring bands were being careful,
Right.
and a lot of them still only wanted to play outdoors.
Sure.
But when we could open up, I always likened it to a restaurant, right? When restaurants could reopen, it was pretty easy. Well, there's another factor here, but it was relatively easy. You just had to get food, get it in your kitchen, and
True.
cook it.
Yeah.
For music venues, our food, our product is a band. It's
Right.
on stage. And the national bands weren't touring.
No.
So we continued to concentrate on local acts.
Right.
We opened the doors, and what we found is that if a local band would have drawn 150 people pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
they probably drew about 200, 250 post-pandemic.
People wanted to get out.
Everybody wanted to get out.
People
and it was
wants to get
great.
out.
We had some of the best nights, I think, just because we all wanted
Wanted
to
it
be
to.
back working.
Sure, and I think you have a lower investment because, they're wanting to work.
Yeah.
So probably you're taking a less of a. We'll go into your gambling.
Yeah. I told you earlier.
Analogy,
All
yeah.
what I do is legalize
Yep.
gambling.
Yep, and it was a more sure bet, I guess, because or at least the loss factor is not as big.
Yeah, that's the downside, and that's. Well, I'll try not to get off on that tangent right now, but that's the one thing that's also the rookie mistake of a promoter is that you look at the upside and you look at all the money you could make if you fill up a room.
True.
That's not what you should look at. You should look at the downside.
What happens if I don't?
What happens if there's a 9/11 event?
Right.
What happens?
Yeah.
There's
You have to have that preparation for that, I guess.
Yeah, and again, it's a business, and the reality is, and too many promoters have gone out of business very quickly. You should never bet more money than you can afford to lose.
This is true. Same way with stocks.
Same way with stocks. Same
Yep.
way with anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. But people do it all the time.
people do it all the time.
That's
You have
another
these
reason you're
visions
probably
of-
still in business.
What's that?
That's probably another reason you're still in business.
Yeah, like I said, I started slow. It was a hobby, and I learned a lot of these things on the way to where I am now. So,
Yeah,
and I still remind myself of them. Sometimes I get a reminder.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of it too, though.
Yeah. But so back to when we reopened, yeah, it was great, right? Everybody's coming out. We've got local bands. There's so much energy in the venue. It felt so
Yeah,
good
I'm
for
sure.
everybody. And then Delta hit.
Yeah,
And then the mask mandate in
Right.
Charlotte. And then everybody started to be concerned again.
yeah,
And that excitement level, I mean, still when we open the doors, people come in, it's been great. I mean, it's been,
Right.
it
Well, the ones that-
re-energized me. I have to say, it re-energized me for the music business.
Well,
as a whole.
I guess you got to see people back to the, gosh, we've missed it for so long, we can't wait to hear it again, which is almost like it's brand new again.
Exactly.
You know.
And for me, part of it too was, so it goes back to being a small business owner. And the other thing that I started to mention before is the problem we all have, and not just music venues, every small business and even large business right now, is staffing.
No, I'm sure. Oh, yeah.
So we can open
yeah.
the doors, but if I can't get people to work at my box office, I can't get
Right.
people to work on the floor as security, I can't
Right.
get bartenders. how many people can I safely let in the room?
Yeah.
So I've been more hands-on than I have been in years.
Oh, I'm sure.
I bartended, and I sincerely apologize to anyone who had to have one of my drinks at neighborhood theater. But there were several shifts before we were fully reopened.
Right.
I was bartending. I was doing security.
Right.
You know, God help us all if there's some problem.
There's a real problem.
And a 63-year-old guy is the last person that has to hold things up. Good news is everybody's been so happy
To get back.
no problems.
That's great.
But staffing is still an issue. So if there's anyone out there who has
You
ever
hear it.
dreamed of working in a music venue,
There you go.
get in touch with me. Because
Like everything else. And, hey, it's a chance to see live music.
every night. I mean, I can't imagine a better job. It's
Oh, man. I'm sure there's a college student somewhere that could be the best college job that there is.
We actually have a UNCC student right now who's studying astrophysics. He's great. He started post-pandemic, and he's great, Charles. And that's always my comment. At some point during the night, I will always be heard to say, "What we do is not rocket science." We have Charles for that.
That's great. I mean, you know, that's good. Got your own Sheldon.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're not expanding past this.
Sorry, I do. Let's circle back to that question. Right now, we're trying to normalize,
Maintain and
again,
normalize.
get back, make sure we have the right staff to do all the things that we need to do, and then we'll see. I mean, like a lot of people, I think the pandemic also made me rethink a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, Max Music doesn't have to be the biggest company in the world. We're not going to be. I mean,
Right.
What's really more important is, it's what I said before, when this all started again, I was re-energized.
That's a good thing.
I have
man.
some new people around me. My staff is great. They keep me in check. If my wife doesn't do it, they keep me in check.
All right.
So yeah, I'm happy where we are. I have
That's good.
fun every night when I go
So
listen to music.
So you still go.
I still go.
You still go to your
There
concerts.
have been very few nights, if I happen to have to be out of town, when I don't make it, and I know that I have a staff that's going to take care of everything.
Oh, and tell people you still actually work a day job.
I do still have a day job, yeah. I
Okay.
do. I work for a
What-
chemical company. I travel. I am a business development manager. So I have a few degrees in chemistry. Started out as a laboratory chemist, for Sandoz in Charlotte, which is what brought me back to Charlotte. So I grew up in Cleveland County.
Right.
Went to Carolina, went to UCLA, went to Montreal, then came back to Charlotte in 86, 87, I don't remember exactly.
During that time before, was that ever in the back of your mind, or were you just?
The music business?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I always loved music. That's my mom's
I mean, it
fault.
just developed basically out of the double door time.
It did. I mean, it was a point in my life. So I just moved. I lived out of the country
Right.
for 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. That was my day job.
Right.
I worked for a Swiss chemical company, and I was relocated, lived in Switzerland for a few years, came back. Right after I came back, I got a divorce, so I was sort of reinventing myself or finding myself,
Sure.
whatever you'd like to call it. And that's when I developed a group of friends who were all musicians, like I said, and that's what led to the Americana Showcase and
Right.
the Double Door. And yeah, that's where it started.
That's a pretty amazing
It's
story.
a lucky mistake. But yes, I still work for a chemical company, which is why I can't thank my staff
Yeah,
of
well,
Mac's music, because
sure.
there are times when I'm drawn.
But I was
away.
also seeing that the love of music, to still have a day job and go out and hear the music you put out there. I mean, that's pretty much a commitment to something you love.
It is.
I mean, it's hard as you get older. It's hard for me to play jobs at my age. It's not as easy as it used to be. It's fun again, though, after taking the COVID time off. All of a sudden, this whole deal is fun for me again, too, just like you. It's there were times during COVID where it's like, I don't really want to go do this. I don't want to drive there to do this. And I'm okay once you get on stage. It's fine, it's fun. But then when you take it away, it's like, oh, maybe I didn't hate that as much,
Yeah. I feel like.
And hate was
I feel
strong.
like it keeps me young. I mean, I
Yeah.
really
I do believe that too. I mean, there is a degree of that, because, I mean, I'm sure you see so many young bands come through too, as opposed to, probably the bands that you have brought in over the years now are older people. So, you're bringing in a whole new generation of musicians.
I am. I'm still bringing in some of those older bands.
I
did a show this summer with Robert Earl Keen. We have the Christmas show at the Night Theater.
Yeah,
coming up.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of fun to.
This is true, and
to do those, and like Robert, I mean, as I said, this keeps me young. But what I've learned over the years, I think, like a lot of people who've survived this business, is there's certain behaviors that maybe we all had when we started in the music industry, that as you get older, you drop those.
Yeah,
behaviors.
you do.
I'm not going to stay out. When we get the band off stage and in the bus and
right, we're out of there,
out of the showers, because they all have to take showers at the end of the night.
Of course,
we're all standing there waiting.
Of course they do.
But when we get them in the bus, it's time to go home.
Yeah,
I want to go home.
Yeah, no more hanging out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do understand that. I'm probably the first one to leave a job. I mean, sometimes I don't even pick up my money. I just go and get it, because I play with honest people who will get it to me. Or work for honest people who will get it to me. So, but it's a pretty interesting story. So, who have you never had that you wanted to? I mean, who have you wanted to and never gotten, or have you gotten everyone you've ever wanted?
That's a good question. So I did a Bob Dylan show with AEG at Belk Theater. I don't know how many years, probably 5 or 6 years
Yeah,
ago.
I think I saw that too. I think I was probably there for that.
So that would
be a biggie.
That was a biggie for me.
Yeah, that would be a biggie.
To be able to do a Bob Dylan show, I've done several Elvis Costello shows.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
A favorite artist?
No, a favorite show that you.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Probably one of the most memorable was Alejandro Escovedo.
I love him.
The first time that he played the double door on a Tuesday night, and the room was pretty crowded, and he did, which he's, I've seen him do it over the years a number of times, but it was the first time I ever saw him do it. He and the entire band unplugged, walked out, stood in the middle of the room and played.
Yeah, that's great.
And it was a religious experience.
I'm sure
it
was
incredible.
I'm sure that was.
So that one stands out. I mean, there've been
I saw the Subdudes at the neighborhood theater, and they actually had audience participation there too. Somewhat, probably not like, it's a bigger venue, not like the double door. So at the, there you could almost reach out and touch. So that would be really cool.
Yeah. There was another one that just came to mind. Sharon Jones and the Daphnes at McGraw Theater was incredible.
Well, that wasn't long enough of a journey for anybody to get to here.
No,
but that's wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
That's,
But has there been anyone? I don't know. I mean,
That's great.
I've been lucky as hell.
That's great.
There are all these artists that I've been able to do shows with, and
do you know who you've booked the most?
it's got
One artist.
It's probably got to be Robert Earl, because I've been doing shows for 25 years with him.
I mean, Robert, that's also been a good draw too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a real great following. He puts on a really good show.
Yep. You and
Super
I,
fun guy.
Before we started, we're talking about Scott Miller. I mean,
Yeah.
Scott Miller, I've done Tuesday night, Double Door was
Yeah.
the first show I ever did with him. And over the years, I've done God knows how many Scott Miller shows.
Yeah, Scott.
And he's still, I will never miss this. I mean, that's when I'll adjust my schedule to make sure I'm in town to see Scott.
Well, you know, Scott, I got probably as much respect for Scott as anyone. He was probably at the apex of his career when he walked away from it, you know, and that is, it's all about family with him, and yeah, I applaud him for that. Besides being a fabulous musician, he's just a great guy.
He is a great guy.
You know, which, and I'm kind of like you, for the most part, my interactions with famous musicians has been pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I got a short list of people that, and I'm sure you do too, but,
I do.
But
I don't like to talk about them. But,
yeah.
And I have at least one who, and I'm not going to talk about the story, but who redeemed himself later.
Oh, well, that's good too.
One that I swore I would never work with again, and didn't for a number of years. Gave him a second chance, and
it worked out.
He changed, you know, and people do.
People do change. They do. I agree, and a lot of times they don't get a chance to redeem themselves. So, you know, that's good. It's an interesting thing, and I should probably do a less family version of this so that we could really talk about the fun stuff. I can tell you some stories. But one of my favorite moments too, which probably very few people have ever had this experience. James McMurtry has always been one of my favorite songwriters. Mine too, probably.
I mean, I Steve Earle. I love Steve Earle. Tom Russell. Scott Miller is in that category for me, and James McMurtry. I got. And there was one time. This is years ago. This is my first experience at the Neighborhood Theater, because I told you before I went away for a little while and then came back in 2013. But I was doing a James McMurtry show. He had just gotten divorced or was in the process of being divorced, and you know James is notoriously non-communicative. The man writes amazing songs.
He does.
But don't try to have a conversation with him. He's not going to say anything. It's yes and no.
Yeah.
That's it. I walked backstage to settle with him, and sat down, and he had a glass of whiskey, and he's sitting there, and he started talking to me, and wouldn't shut up.
Wow.
He talked to me for like 2 hours, and I
McMurtry did.
McMurtry did, and so Paul McBroom, who owned the theater at the time, came back to the green room and said, "We want to go home." Said, "You just go
home.
I'll lock the doors, because I will never have this experience again."
No,
and I never have.
I was going to say,
it's like, this man wants to talk.
I'm listening.
To talk to him.
Yeah,
and it was incredible. I mean, you know,
I'd love to have a real conversation with him.
Yeah, I mean, he was, you know, I felt like for that moment in time, I was one of his friends. He needed to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I've been divorced. There were things we could talk about, and he had a good kid. I mean, it was it was great. That's one of those moments that, you know, would go down in my book.
Sure, I can see where that would. I mean, I'm envious. That is one of the people that I would like to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
You know, I have people that I would like to have conversations with. I mean, that's kind of part of the reason I do this is I like talking with people, and I have a list. And an actual conversation with him would be great.
Yeah. Not many people get them. From
Yeah.
what I hear, not many people get them. I'm lucky I got one. You asked me before about an act. So for me, it's not so much an act that I need to have to feel like I've
Right.
closed my career out or whatever, which I don't ever intend to do. I like doing this so much, I'm going to do it until it's not fun anymore.
Right.
But the first concert I ever saw in my life was at the old Charlotte Coliseum.
Yeah.
It was Glenn Campbell in, it had to be the mid-'60s.
Would that have been a rhinestone cowboy era?
I think it was
Probably pre.
Cowboy.
Yeah.
This was, John Hartford was on the bill. I remember there was a comedian who opened up. I couldn't tell you who it was. But one of my cousins from Cleveland County, Roger Umphris, and one of my other cousins took me to this show. I mean, I was much younger. Why they decided to invite me, I don't know, but I'm really grateful they did.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I had a blast. I've still, at my mom's house, there are still pictures that I took with like a little Instamatic camera,
Right.
where I remember, and I was in grammar school. I don't know how old I was, but I remember going up the aisle, getting as close to the stage as I could, and taking pictures. And those pictures are still at my mom's house.
God.
So the point of this being that the first concert I ever saw was at Charlotte Coliseum, which is Bojangles.
Bojangles now, yeah.
I have done shows at Ovens.
Yeah.
Done a lot of shows at Ovens, and it's the sister venue
Right.
to Bojangles. So for me, I have to do a show at Bojangles.
I wondered,
at some point.
have you ever done one? That was going to be my next question.
No, I've done Ovens. So that's 2,000, 2,500's about the largest show that I've done.
One of my favorite stories about the Bojangle Coliseum is a guy from here, Scoot Pittman. Scoot used to sing the national anthem there before Charlotte Checkers games. And the first time he did it, he forgot the words. or he repeated a verse, is what he did. And he said, the hockey players are all European or Canadian.
Yeah.
He said they all turned around and went, and he said they were nice and gave him a second time, and he did it like 50 times. So yeah, you need to do a show there. I don't know what you put there these days though.
I don't either. That's what I've struggled with. Is most of the things that I do are it's my place on the food chain again. Most of the things. That
I have a request for a show.
Okay.
Tom Waits.
There you go. There's one that I would love to do. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know that he even does.
I don't.
He's
out much.
I don't think he does either, and I don't think he ever has enough to mount to anything either. I mean, I think it's like with him, it's a whim. I think.
Yeah.
I think I'll go play these live somewhere that's not a TV show. Because
So I don't know. I've done a lot of Avett Brothers shows over the years, but I've never been involved in one of their Bojangles shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh.
I did get to participate in their live stream last year during COVID.
Oh,
We did it from the Belk. And
yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
So I've had Dolph on. Dolph's a pretty interesting guy. And Daniel Costin,
Yeah,
Daniel
well.
Daniel has taken a picture of probably how many shows of yours has he taken pictures of?
Yeah, he's on the perma list.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right? At the door, any show that I do, Daniel shows up. He gets to come.
Yeah, I mean, he's recorded it. You've produced it. He's recorded it in Charlotte. I mean, pretty much between the two of you guys, you've got Charlotte music history in the modern day.
Yeah, well, Daniel's an amazing historian. I mean, you say that he's a great photographer, and he's out documenting all these events. But boy, if you have a question about the history of music, especially Charlotte music,
yeah, he is great.
I mean, I feel like I know a lot. I've known a lot of these bands over the years, but
I tried to get him to hunt down a Kilgo's Canteen video that I did when I was a kid. So far he hadn't come up with it, but I know the Kilgo's, I'm sure that's archived somewhere.
oh, yeah, it must be.
I mean, I don't know who has those. I'd love to see those old Kilgo Canteens band, because used to come to Charlotte and all the bands would go to one place and they would do just one band after another, and it was a great day. One of the times when I was there, one of the bands had Graham Parsons in it. He was living in Spartanburg at the time. It's during the time that somehow his grandfather, his dad, his stepdad had a mill in Spartanburg, and he had a band. I used to know the name of it, but I cannot. It escapes me today. But he was there, and his band was really good, you know. So I would love to see those, and I don't know who has those archives. So.
Yeah. I go to Daniel very often if there's something I just can't remember. I actually had to. I said earlier my company's 25 years old, but I wasn't really sure. I tried to piece it all together,
right?
And I finally just called Daniel and said, Daniel, can you help me with this? When did I do my first show?
I mean, Daniel he's an unknown secret to Charlotte.
Yeah.
I mean, well, both of you are actually. I mean, you know, when people are talking names in Charlotte, both of you guys need to be at the forefront. You know, you guys. I don't think they have a Charlotte Music Hall of Fame, but.
There's a North Carolina one. But
yeah, there is.
There is a Charlotte one.
Actually, I played at Earl Owensby's when he got inducted, but he got inducted with Danny Flowers, who played with Don Williams, who wrote Tulsa Time, and I played it at Earl's place. And then Daniel said there was a gap in there where they lost records for who was inducted during that time, and that is like a 3 to 5 year span, and they don't know who they inducted.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And Daniel can't piece it back
He
together.
can't piece it back together.
He should be able to.
I know. He said, I don't know what happened. He said, I wasn't associated with it during that time, and there's that gap. So that would be, I mean, how unfortunate would that be to be inducted?
It really would be.
And then they just lose the fact that it ever happened.
It's funny, though, because, you know, I remember being a kid in Cleveland County, going to high school here, and the brightest moment of my life at the time was the first friend of mine who got a driver's license, so we could drive to Charlotte and go to shows.
To a show, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Grady Cole Center, which was...
I forgot about the Grady Cole.
It was not Grady Cole.
No, it wasn't.
Park Center, I think.
I think it was Park Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old Coliseum.
Yeah. Oh, also the Memorial Stadium used to have the Big Waves radio things, which was always a big part of. I mean, I actually saw the Rolling Stones at one of those one time.
Really?
Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But we'd take off from Shelby in the late afternoon and go to Charlotte more times than I can remember.
And now,
shows.
Now you bring them there and see them every time.
I do get to see them.
That is too cool.
Several nights a week.
That's wonderful. What else do we need to know, Greg?
I don't know. What else do you need to know?
That's
I'm just a lucky guy.
You are a very lucky guy, and I appreciate you taking your time out of. It's got to be a very busy schedule to come up here and do this.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. It's nice to reconnect.
It is. It is. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.